I think we'll go ahead and get started. Do we need to be in the mic? We're good? Okay. Good afternoon. Kory Seaman. And Joanne Hogan from ProQuest, and I'm from the University of Michigan. We're here to talk about alumni resources, opportunities and perspectives for both libraries and publishers. What we're going to do is we're both going to have a chance to talk. Joanne's going to share the vendor-publisher perspective. I'm going to share the library perspective. We did a survey of business libraries and talking about what kinds of resources may be available, and so we'll share that, and then we'll leave some time for questions. Let Joanne introduce herself.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Joanne Hogan. I'm a Director of Product Management at ProQuest. I work on our subscription products. I personally manage our business databases, but I also manage a team that's working on our social science products, our kind of what we call our GenRef multidisciplinary products. In terms of alumni access, I work really closely with our sales and marketing teams, with our Global Content Alliance or our licensing team, and with our legal team, so I am kind of aware of some of the issues related to alumni products.
And I'm Kory Seaman, Director of Kresge Library Services at the Ross School of Business, University of Michigan. We're an independent library reporting and receiving funding from the B School. We work collaboratively with the main University of Michigan library system. I've been the director for 11 years, which every time I say it just sounds surreal because it seems like a really long time. We have provided a suite of resources before I arrived since the mid to early 2000s, and our resources have grown and contracted over time. And here's my contact information, but we'll have this also at the end.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to talk about a few things related to our experience with alumni resources. As Kory mentioned, he did a survey of business librarians and their experience with alumni, so I'm going to just share maybe some of the demographic information that we have related to what we find in the market, talk a little bit about some of our issues with restrictions in dealing with publishers, and then look maybe at a bit of our usage. So in terms of what we actually offer, it kind of varies by our different agreements and with our publisher relations. So on the aggregated alumni database side, we sell alumni access as an uplift to a current subscription to current customers. We do expect that the institution will be able to provide IP access and control those users and understand who those users are. And then wherever we have them, we have to enforce any publisher restrictions that we have under our agreements. In terms of our perpetual access collections, that really varies. Some of our perpetual access collections, we own the content ourselves. It might be out of copyright. In those cases, you should check with your salesperson. You might actually have alumni access. I know that's possible under some of the Alexander Street collections, for example. And other ones where they might be a bit more restricted might be some of the historic newspapers. And again, they might have a different kind of surcharge to get alumni access. Currently, our government and dialogue products are not available for alumni access. That's not really a very formal thing. It's probably more a question of demand. So if you do have interest in those, again, please ask. And then some of you might be aware that we are the distributor of Factiva to the academic market, and that Factiva no longer offers alumni access through ProQuest. If you are interested in that, they will speak to you directly, so you have to contact Dow Jones. So again, just some of the demographic information of how we have seen alumni products develop at ProQuest. So in terms of what subjects get purchased, I know most of you might be interested in business, and that certainly is a big focus for a lot of our alumni customers. But in fact, our multidisciplinary products like ProQuest Central or Research Library are even more popular. I would take these statistics with a grain of salt. There's probably some sales dynamics in here that are affecting them. I didn't dig too deeply, but there might be some consortia or statewide sales that are affecting some of these numbers as well. In terms of which kinds of customers are buying, they're overwhelmingly 2/3 of them are doctoral institutions, which kind of aligns with some of the survey information we found where we had a good response from the doctoral institutions. In fact, we probably sell a little less to the master's level institutions than we found on the survey. And then by region, again, this might be related to some of our larger statewide deals and things like that, but the vast majority of our alumni accounts are in the United States. Again, some of those are related to business, but a lot of them are other products as well. And then of customers that hold them outside of the US, which is relatively few, the vast majority of those are within the doctoral institutions. So this is kind of the meat of our presentation here, is just kind of understanding where we are with alumni rights and things like this. So I have a couple things that I want to talk about here. First of all, there's a perception that we found in our survey and that we encounter with customers from time to time, is that the alumni versions just aren't very worthwhile because of the publisher restrictions that exist. So I think the way to look at this is to kind of understand why publishers participate with aggregators, and there's a number of reasons. It really depends on the publisher. Some of them just consider us another channel. They're happy to give ProQuest and anybody else who will take it access to their content. They just want it broadly disseminated. They're looking for whatever sales they can get via that kind of channel. Others are a little more selective. They might have their own sales forces that aren't really tapping into the academic markets, so they're happy for us to take that service on for them and aggregate. And then others realize that they're probably not making nearly enough with an aggregator or in academic markets as they do with their core corporate markets. They want to get their brand out there to the future student users, so that they're coming in and they're taking those personal subscriptions after they graduate, or they're bothering their corporate libraries or companies to come up with their own academic subscriptions. So there's a couple ways that we serve this need with our publishers. Under our license agreements, anyone who does not want to provide access to alumni accounts, we just restrict that content. You just don't see it at all. And then we also have a kind of a term under the terms and conditions. So anybody who orders an alumni product may have noticed on the order form that you see this kind of separate product notice related to alumni access. And this is the problematic issue here, where we have to state in these terms that any alumni using these products can only be doing personal research, or for using it for educational purposes. They cannot be conducting corporate research that they take back to their employer, for example. We realize that this is problematic. I have some of my research with faculty. They very clearly said that they expect business programs and the business librarians and the peers and everybody who is teaching students in business programs to make sure that they've got very strong research skills when they leave those programs. We understand it's difficult for you to spend all this time and energy to teach students these skills, and then when it comes to alumni access, suddenly put on the brakes and put a big barrier in front of them and say, all of those use cases and things that we taught you in business school no longer apply. So we know it's not an ideal situation. The good news is that I personally am not aware of any circumstances or situations related to the ProQuest products that are sold to alumni where we have had to cancel a subscription. If it ever happens, we'll refund your money, so that's a good thing. So that's good. But it obviously does happen, and we have to be sensitive to our publishers. So Dow Jones is probably the best known example, where they very frequently ran into this problem, where their salespeople would go into a corporate institution and be told that they don't have to take out a subscription because some of their staff have access through alumni access. And that went right to the CEO of their company, and they just had to make the decision that they were no longer going to offer that. So you can still get it, you just have to deal directly with Dow Jones and probably pay more of a corporate price than an academic price level. More facts here. The fact is that within the ProQuest realm anyway, very few of our titles are actually restricted from our alumni products. So across all of our journal, aggregated journals and other multi-format products, it's really only 9 publishers that are currently restricted, and that represents only 2% of the full-text articles in those products. Even within ABI, that goes down to about 7 publishers and only 5% of that content. So you can see a lot of that is in the scholarly journals. 2 of our big scholarly journal publishers restrict access to alumni. But in totality, it represents only 12% of our actual scholarly journals, so you still have access to 88% of the rest. The news, again, is the Dow Jones issue. And in addition to not selling Factiva to alumni, we also do not distribute the Wall Street Journal and Dow Jones titles to alumni. And then there's also some magazine and trade publishers. Again, pretty small proportion of the total, but they are there. And there's some well-known publishers like Euromoney Institutional Advisor, for example, is one that you would see there. So I thought I would take a look at what alumni use and what kinds of publications they use, and just see if there's any trends there that might indicate that there's some warning signs or something we should be watching for. So I took a look at the 2016 usage for ABI to see what kinds of source types they were using and how they differ from our core academic markets. And then I also took a look at what are those publications about, like what do they really do, and what's being used in terms of that kind of thing. And on a first glance, I was a little bit alarmed. I thought, oh geez, it really looks like there's probably some kind of personal research going on here, because the scholarly journal use is considerably lower in proportion than what we see from our core academic customers. And things like our report usage and trade magazines and things like that are a little bit higher. And then when you look, you see things like the industry resources, the company resources, and things like that seem to get used a little more with the alumni resources than they do with the regular accounts. But I don't think we can jump to the conclusion that this is they're downloading these massive report sets and taking them back to their employer and sharing them around or anything like that, or to their customers. I think there's some very legitimate use cases going on here. So there could be alumni that are researching a company or an industry for a job interview. They could be doing a lot of this information is news. We find very high use of things like our wire feeds and our financial wire feeds. So they could be doing research for their own stock portfolios. There could be any number of things going on here. And if I did have a publisher that was concerned with these kinds of patterns, I think I would really point out the fact is that all of this alumni use comes to less than 1% of the total ABI usage in aggregate. So if you start breaking that down and looking at which publishers are being used, what kinds of content are being used within even certain regions, the math just doesn't add up. The fact is, it's probably very unlikely that there's much going on in terms of it affecting any potential for corporate sales. And again, we sell our products we're not just aggregating our publishers' content, but we actually do sell our products into the corporate market as well. And we don't seem to come across this situation where our salespeople are being blocked because they can get alumni access. So in summary, I think I would say this is supporting alumni services is something we like to do for our customers. It's not a big focus. I don't think you would find your salespeople are nagging you and expecting to make their sales number based on alumni sales in any given year. We understand that it's important for you. Really, our core mission is serving, especially with our aggregated products, is serving the undergraduate user, the faculty user. And we really don't want to put at risk any of those really big publisher agreements we have that could reduce the value for those users. So we do have to be cognizant of that and be sensitive to our publisher needs. But yeah, in general, I think providing alumni service is a great service. And yeah, we look forward to continuing to do that. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kory. He's going to give your library vendor perspective.
Okay, thank you. So what I want to do is talk about, from our perspective, the resources that we offer to alumni, acquiring resources for alumni, and much like Joanne, we view this as things that are available remotely. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Our services that we offer to alumni and our coordination with development and alumni affairs. The reason why I pulled this picture up is this is a picture of a few different orientation sessions that we've participated in. And the reason why I bring this up is because it started happening a few years ago where I would go to MBA Orientation. They're at the start of a 20-month process. And we talk about the resources that they would have available. And invariably, there would be one student who would ask, during an open question period, how many resources will we have available as alumni? And it's like, dude, you're just starting out. Come on, man, it's 20 months from now. It's like, you just find out your spouse is pregnant and you're wondering what day that they'll start to walk. That's not really, not the spouse, the baby. But I mean, it's just kind of, it shows that there is a value and there is a understanding, at least at the beginning, that this is something that they might be interested in. So what we've done is we actually recently redid our website, and I'm going to use my pointer. And if you go to the Kresge Library homepage, we've got it broken down, students, faculty, and alumni. So they're front and center. And this is part and parcel of the fact that we're part of the B School, and we can do this, and it works out really well. We recently found out some links on the alumni site were going to the database resources, but without the proxy information. And since all of this was from off campus, we actually had to fix that, and we're not sure exactly how that happened. But if you follow the link to alumni, you can see here that we've got reference services, Ask a Librarian. You can browse Dividend articles. Dividend is our alumni magazine, and we make that available. You can search back issues as well, and then remote database access. We actually have changed our approach. We used to use a local homegrown system to display information about databases, and now we're using LibGuides as our A to Z list, and it's working out really well. So the resources that we offer to alumni, they're found here. These slides are available. You'll see the link. The initial focus really is on career resources and tools. So it's, we started with Vault, Career Insider, and Career Beam and Wet Feet as a way to start, and that was something that was really important. It's been expanded and actually contracted over the years. So we also had Factiva. We're told that it was no longer being made available to alumni. We perceive this not as a walk-in. Some people, when you ask about alumni access, will talk about walk-in access, and I was talking about that actual thing yesterday. This is really just remote access. People can get access. And the reason why we can do that is because our Ross IT, the Computing Services Department, maintains a database, an authentication system for all alumni in perpetuity. And it's very funny, actually. We had one vendor who was very adamant 10 years ago at SLA that we don't offer walk-in access, very adamant. And yet I talked with them today, it was different people, and now they're asking about if we would be interested in an alumni product. So it's a very, very different mindset, but there is the opportunity for additional revenue. So that's something to be considered. Just as Joanne said, this is intended for personal use. It is kind of hard, maybe impossible, to police that. Just as the speed limit is 70 miles an hour, you have to take some personal responsibility. So every time we have an interaction with alumni, we always remind them that this is for your personal use. Just as Joanne was sharing the story about Factiva, we've had people very happily tell salespeople, oh yeah, I have access to that through Ross. And it's like, you do, your company does not, and you really are not intended or allowed to share that. The University of Michigan Alumni Association, which is, so the Ross alumni is like a tattoo. You graduate, that's what you have for life. You don't have to pay for it annually. The University of Michigan Alumni Association is an annual subscription or membership, or you can buy a lifetime membership. My son, Chris, who's here, that's him graduating in the big house in April. So he is a member because he's actually a graduate. He is entitled to get access to a Project Muse database and a ProQuest database. That is part of that membership. Okay. I would have a picture of my other son graduating, but he decided not to go to the ceremony. So he loses out. Resources offered to alumni, a lot of it is career focused. I was telling Joanne, I'm very hesitant about cutting these kinds of resources because I think they're important. Although we did cut Wet Feet because they weren't updating content. The content was very old. Vault, Campus, Career Beam are two most important career resources. D&B Hoovers, formerly Evention, formerly OneSource, is an important resource that we have. Our Emergent Online, Intellect, and Archives are available. Business Monitor in the company and industry slice. In news, we have Business Source Alumni Edition and Business Insights Global. So it's a really nice variety of resources. You can follow the links to an updated list of resources. We also have a few discount programs which are not effective. They're 5 to 10% off list prices on marketresearch.com because we're a customer, we're able to leverage our existing purchase, and they're not what our alumni want. So there's two ways that we acquire resources for alumni. One is a direct purchase, and that is usually as an extension. We don't buy anything that is not already offered on campus. And occasionally people will ask us for alumni access to resources that we don't even have for current students and faculty and staff. And you're just like, no, makes it easy. What we can also do on occasion is negotiate access with one source. We just basically dedicate a few of our seats for alumni access. So they are actually able to manage that. If it becomes a problem, we can revisit it, but it hasn't been. For us, it is less than 1% of our current resource budget. Probably around $30,000. Our resource budget is about 1.1 million. We have a luxury Michigan Ross. It's still difficult to justify when you're cutting budgets. And that's always a challenge because we're talking about resources for current students and faculty versus resources for alumni. We've attempted to provide balance as best we can. But we've actually had to cancel 2 resources this year during a budget cut, that both of whom had alumni access. One of the things that we're trying to do is also encourage people to discover open access resources, which is kind of a nice layer that you can lay on everything. One business library actually has a whole series of open access resources that they make available to alumni, but they run through the proxy. There's no reason to run through the proxy things that are open access. It's just frustrating, I think, for visitors who come to the page. Some of the resources actually don't cost that much and may be useful to alumni. We celebrated at the University of Michigan our 200th birthday. The state of Michigan is 175 years old, so I'll let you guys figure that one out. But I guess we were the university of the state to be named later. We have been doing some scanning, and so we make a lot of historical resources available, and that's a link that we have, and we'll make that available on our alumni page. We offer services to alumni. We always like to find out who they are, and what we do is we basically skew our services to the resources that they have. So if they're alumni, we don't talk about things, for lack of a better term, Mintel, ABI Informed, that they don't have access to as Ross alum. We focus on the things that they do. We also have a syllabi archives, which is a great program that we set up a few years ago. And if a Ross alumni is actually going back to grad school or needs to get certification, they may need to prove that they have actually taken classes that cover things like ethics. This actually shows our reference interactions. They were pretty steadily low. So in 2005, we were 16, 21, 28 interactions a year. And this is actually the financial crisis. And so a lot of people started reaching out to us for assistance using the resources, especially in the career market. And it basically established a new plateau. And we've actually been creeping up. The economy's been good here, but people are starting to use the resources more and more. One of the things that also happened here is that we started a new program called Alumni Advantage, which is actually a good thing to segue. So we're on the 4th floor of Kresge Hall, and we're across from Development Alumni Affairs, which isn't a great place for the library to be. But it is really great that we've been able to make some nice connections. Alumni Advantage is a program that was rolled out a few years ago. It basically provides a suite of resources that alumni have access to, and it was rolled out by the person who now is our dean. So it's really kind of nice that we were there at the beginning. Because we already had these databases available, we were able to basically be included without actually having to do anything, which is always nice. And so we rolled our databases in that. So I think as that information went out, the usage actually went up. Last year, this year on March 31st, we had Alumni Orientation. Here's Joel Scheuer, one of our librarians, and here's Laura Burdish. and we were in the lifelong learning row. And it's really kind of nice with executive education. And so we were able to showcase the kinds of resources that they would have access to as they moved on in their lives. Talk very briefly about survey results. We did a survey of business librarians, and it was really focused on business, but I think it's appropriate for what we were trying to do, at least because we're both on the business side of the equation. We surveyed business librarians this month on what people are doing, and we asked librarians around the world. I didn't get any interaction from Asia, but we got a fair amount from the US and Europe. Of people who identified, we had 69 people participate. And do you offer electronic resources to alumni? And 62% of the people that responded did. And so we had 25 or 36% that did not, and one person who was not sure. Do you have a page specifically for alumni? And still, just around 50% do, and it's a real great engagement point to have that kind of portal on the library site. It creates a lot of opportunity. How do you obtain alumni resources? For many of us, and you checked all that apply, 20% pay a separate subscription rates. A little more, we're able to add current packages on at no extra cost or at an incremental cost. Some people have identified freely available resources. One of the great roles that librarians have is the ability to provide clarity. It's way confusing, as we all know, to sit there and type in anything. You can type in, coffee shop market report, and it's very, very difficult to sort of manage that. So to be able to offer freely available resources, I think, makes a big difference. We have a lot of people in Michigan who stay in the state, and so there are resources that are available through the state library that we also direct people to. And there were 17 people that don't offer resources. The perception of value, this is something that Joanna and I were talking about. We asked people to rate it on a scale of 1 to 9, and the means came up very close. We asked, how did the librarian rate it? And the average was about 5. And then how would you perceive the value to alumni? And it was only 6. I think the value could be knocked down a bit because we don't have access to everything. But the business men and women it's desired that actually that they become the customers afterwards. So I think my own personal opinion is that the value is much higher. Do you offer reference services? The vast majority do. 88%. And then just sharing comments, I'm not going to read these, but there were concerns about costs of database and how do you maintain that when you make these things available. A lot of people in the UK were talking about the Joint Information Systems Committee and alumni access more broadly available in the UK. In fact, there's a library alumni cohort in the UK, which I'm going to share these findings with. If for anyone who's actually creating their own business, if they come up with the idea 3 weeks after they graduate, they find that the resources they have access to just plummet. So being able to provide just a few resources, I think, can really help. Alumni do ask. I'm from New Jersey, so I can't talk, for access all the time. And it's very challenging, I think. And especially when you have to make cuts. It's very challenging to add something to a group that's not actually contributing to your bottom line. The value of access to electronic resources is tricky. We had alumni-specific collections. They wouldn't receive the same content that they had in school, so their perception of value might be high at first, but very low once they realize what they have. I don't think that's necessarily an issue. They know that they're not getting something. We make it really clear that these are the suite of resources that we are able to provide. And I think when you're starting off with the blank slate or a Google page, it's really important to be able to direct them into one area. So actually, the slides My slides and the full survey results are available at that tiny URL. They're on our institutional repository at Michigan. So if you want to look at its tiny URL, CHS17 CS alumni, and it is worth looking at. If you guys have any questions, feel free. And I think we have 10 minutes, so we do have time for questions. So if you have anything, please just come up to the mic.
Hi, I'm Ellen Metter from the University of Colorado, Denver, and I wonder if you've ever noticed any correlation between those who are using these resources and donations, people becoming donors.
Goodness. What we go for the long haul here. We've seen people. I haven't seen that necessarily. We have been working very diligently with the development department in trying to make these connections, and they're very much with us insofar as what we can do, and they understand what we can't do and what we can't. We've had a few alumni who were 99.5% sure we're abusing the privilege. And we figure that those people are very unlikely to produce donations. However, that all being said, if someone found it or found it useful, the donation may come years and years and years hence. So we're hoping. Our interaction becomes a good story that our dean can tell as he talks to the board of governors for the school and as he talks to alumni, as something that they want Ross not to be a point in time. It's not like a cruise where you go and you have a good time and then you're done. He wants the Ross to be an experience that stays with them for life. So they're doing a lot of cultivation right now. I don't know, have you heard anything otherwise, Joanne?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hi, quick question. My name is Ann Arch. I'm at University of Portland. I'm wondering if you have usage numbers on your syllabi archive or general usage thoughts?
So we don't have any usage of that, except in, the only thing actually we do have is we record all of our transactions. Actually it was in a different slide. I'll talk about that in a second. We have a fair number of people, and we are the only place, unless they want to harass or bug or write their faculty member, which is usually, you might as well write it on a brick and throw it out in Marion Square and not hit a squirrel. We have done this, and it's actually been tremendous. We've had a fair amount of interactions, but I don't really see the usage. Alumni have to have a mediated request. Per the construction of the syllabi database, it is only the last 2 years, and it's only for current members of the community. So anyone outside of that has to go through us. So we verify that they're an alum, and then we don't look at their transcript, but then we say, okay, this is what they need. One thing that is, oh crap, what was I gonna say about that? That's been something that actually grew out of a desire for students to have more information than the description that was listed, and it just blossomed into this wonderful, beneficial service.
How do you get your hands on the syllabi?
Okay, so the question is, how do we get our hands on the syllabi? We grab them. We manage the CMS or the LMS for the school. We're using Canvas right now. We were using C-Tools. So we are essentially administrators for the school. So we basically go through and harvest. We have someone go in and basically to all the C-Tools or Canvas accounts, grab the syllabus, and we populate it that way. And we had an opt-out period, and basically no one decided to do that. There is security in the sense that it only shows the last 2 years. But it's been tremendous, and it's a little bit of time, a little bit of coding, but it works out really well. Anyone can actually go to our website and look at the syllabi archive. You just can't download the file if it's working correctly. If it's not working correctly and you can download the file, please let me know.
Can I go there? Can I go there?
You can go there.
Can I?
Yeah, anyone, even people from ProQuest can go there. No, so the it's really quite fascinating, and it's been really a very pleasant aspect. And so there are some things. I mean, that does take time, but there is a definite benefit. One of the other advantages, we only have to do it for one school. So that makes it a little easier, although, you know, our size of our library may be scaled, but we go through and we basically pull everything. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? No, just to wrap things up, I think it's been wonderful. The one thing that I don't have it here, but for my session yesterday, we did a scan of the number of reference interactions, and we were I had it broken down to 3 buckets. So there's Ross, and that was 90% of our reference transactions over the last 5 years. There's the rest of the University of Michigan, which was around 4, alumni, which was just under 4, and walk-in users. And those are people actually asking questions, not people just coming in and using stuff and leaving. So we were around 3% of all of our transactions the last 3 years come from reference. I mean, strike that, come from alumni. And that does include, here, hold on, let me go back. That includes actually non-reference questions. So sometimes the syllabi would be tagged like that. Let's see if I can go find that. But this has been really quite interesting, and I'm not making this up. This was actually at 106, but we had 3 reference questions from alumni on Friday last week. So I got to push it up to 109. One of which was a person who wanted to download all the records from one of our company databases in Australia. And so we got him to not do it. And we were able to, because we had the conversation, we were able to save ourselves some headaches. We have had a situation, it's not really alumni, although technically it is, a student on the way out with one database, they're not represented here at the conference, they tried to download all of the global reports. And ever since then, we have actually we get challenged when we go to the database and we have to create sort of a mini account. We have to go in and put down a name, affiliation, email, which it's acceptable, it's fine, but alumni wanted to grab all of the reports, or the graduating student wanted to grab all the reports and leave. And these reports, they're like dairy products. They only have a certain shelf life. And so the notion that you're going to hold on to this forever is just kind of lunacy. So, and with that, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just have one more. Did you find, I'm with Project Muse, do you find when you're offering Muse and ProQuest to alumni that, do you think that the Alumni Association would be able to use that as a kind of marketing tool, as an opportunity to broaden their offerings and give them, their alumni, a reason or another reason, an added reason, a benefit to join?
So I think personally, it's crazy that they don't do more, because it is actually a value that they have. We're a little different, so we don't. What am I doing here? I hate presenter view. So I'm going to go here, look really quickly. What am I doing? So it is available through the main library and the main Alumni Association. And I was poking around, and it's actually not something that they put on their front page. So if you go to the Ross alumni page, they talk about Alumni Advantage, and one of the things they say is you have some database access. And it's not what the databases that people want, but you know, when you're on Delta and you're flying home tomorrow, the next day, and they offer you a Kind bar, you're like, wow, this is pretty cool. I didn't think you'd offer that. So it's a little more, you'd rather have a meal, but they're offering you something a little more than what you were expecting. So that's good. I think it's a very, very positive thing. We've tried not to replicate anything that the main university Alumni Association offers, so we can maintain our own licenses as well. And if they join the Alumni Association and are a Ross alum, then they're not paying essentially twice. But I think it is something that is absolutely beneficial. And I don't think we do enough to market it. So with that, thank you very much. And